Good evening and welcome to TDM Talk Show. I'm your host, Kelsey Wilhelm. Our guest tonight is Maxim Bessmertny, an award-winning film director whose new project, Marlin, is going to be joining the acclaimed International Film Festival and Awards Macau's digital project market this December. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me again, Kelsey. This is a pleasure and an honor to be back here.
Yeah, it's great to have you back on the show. It's been a couple years now, and you haven't stopped in the meantime. Even despite a global pandemic, there's still projects that you're coming out with.
Well, it's been a tough year, I can say, for everybody, for the whole planet. But I think that it's been an amazing year for writing, and it's the time to be writing and zooming and just moving things forward. So it just happened to be that in this year you can manage to finish your screenplays, and pitch them on time.
Yeah, I can imagine there's always a lot of ideas. It must be difficult to focus on one, or can you always be focused only on one?
Well, it's better to finish what you start naturally at some point. But I think you kind of go and you as a filmmaker and as a writer, screenwriter, you have to write different projects. You just have to develop them. Especially since it's my first one, I'm really trying hard to get it done, to get it financed. It's been so many years that I've been writing 2 scripts a year since 2014, so it keeps going, So it takes time to get it done.
There's so many steps within this process, though. I mean, just making a movie in and of itself, from the point when you start filming, is already a huge process. But then there's this whole backlog of work that comes before that. So that kind of takes us a little bit to this Macau digital project market. You've got Marlin, which is going to be a feature. The idea is to be a feature film project. What is the importance of something like this digital project market, or having a market there to get the filmmakers, producers, money men? What is the importance of something like that?
It's incredibly important. That's the main part. That's actually the main part. It's easy to be on the red carpet. I mean, it's not easy to get there. I mean, it's fun to be on the red carpets and smiling for the cameras and all that. But the hardest part is really getting the money, and it's really about getting the script and the project and the people and just the luck of the timing, the situation. What's going on. In which era you're living in as well. Like in the era of now, we go through digital markets, and it's been amazing to be part of this. We were developing this other project called Foreign Cop, and with that I was able to join a physical market and later on a digital market. And now with Marlin, it's another project that it's just exciting to keep the steam going, so to speak, like stay on track, and keep writing and trying to produce stuff, because it's a lot of people, it's a lot of energy, it's a lot of effort, a lot of promises, a lot of broken hearts sometimes, but you have to keep going and try and do it until you make one.
Seems like the film industry is pretty representative of what the actual product is at the end. You've got drama, you've got horror, you've got science fiction.
That's just the final stage. I mean, it's so much around it. There's so many people involved, and it's so hard because you have to manage so much as well. You want to be creative. You want to take all that advice from film school and try and tell a good story, or you want to tell your own life story as a film director or as a writer, as a screenwriter. You want to sell that script. There's so many different ways. And then once you get something, even a short film, then you try and get a team together. And that team does everything for you. They're like, without that team, you wouldn't be able to make the film. So it's you have to be amazingly grateful as a filmmaker, but you also have to be amazing. There's no barriers. You just have to keep going and going and going, and it's nonstop, really.
Well, this
persistence, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. With this specific project market, there's going to be some 14 total projects. It was just very, very recently announced, and you've got a whole list of international names, more Asia-centric names. You've got the Christopher Doyle, who had worked with Kar-Wai. Jenny Sun, who's a part of the same project. There's going to be a film supposedly about Bruce Lee being brought back from a staged death to save Chuck Norris from imprisonment. We'll see. We'll see. There's going to be a sci-fi flick. There's also another one who's produced by Eric Koo. And does that name sound familiar to you?
Yes, Eric Koo is one of Singapore's great filmmakers. In fact, when I was in film school there at Tisch Asia, we watched his film 12 Stories. And once I saw that, we were all excited to tell short films in Singapore, because we saw, you'd see a film like Eric's and the characters and how the story moved around, and it's kind of like a Pulp Fiction of Singapore, that you're excited as well, because there's a language, there's a cinematic language, and so in that period of time, we're talking about film school like 8 years ago, so we watched his films, and it's excited to see these people in film markets later on, once you graduate, that you go on and you try and do something, and once you're on stage, you're pitching, sometimes you see somebody that you watch their films in class, and suddenly they're like, oh, I like your film title, or you should keep going in this direction or that direction. So that's really fun, and it's also inspiring for younger filmmakers when older generation, it's not about age, I guess it's about experience. More experienced filmmakers come to you and say, keep going, this is fun. I went through the same thing.
Does it feel surreal that you're, one of the 14 projects that are on the same stage with these people to be doing this pitching? I
mean, the whole film journey has been surreal since
the previous project was Cannes, right? The previous pitching market was Cannes.
Yeah, that was surreal too. I was just amazed to be in figuring it out. You're slowly figuring it out as you're going, because it's not a finalized product. We are pitching something which is IP, intellectual property, and then in the end we have to kind of convince either sales agents or backers that this is worth investing in. This is a story worth telling. So there's so many variables. It's just really hard to predict, what goes forward, what doesn't go forward. But I can say this: I think it's more about, the question sometimes gets asked because a lot of times financiers are not always from the film industry.
Yep.
So the question is, can we have our money back? Do we see our investment back? And I think the answer is, worst case scenario, you get to go to red carpets, premieres, and your name is forever on that credit, on that IP. And who knows, one day it goes on Criterion Collection, whatever. It goes into a film distribution cycle years later. Best case scenario, yeah, it goes to the cinemas, people like it, it makes some money back, and it keeps going to festivals around the world. And it makes people's lives more fun. They're part of something, I mean,
people in Macau got to experience that firsthand. This was going to be the 5th edition of IFFAM.
Yeah, exactly.
And this film market's running from the 3rd to the 5th of December. The whole festival is meant to be running from the 3rd to the 8th of December. But people really, cinema is such a interactive experience. Even though you're, supposedly sitting there watching a screen, preferably for myself eating some popcorn with a good refreshment, it's still a bit of a collective experience. You get the oohs and ahs of the audience. You feel how the emotions are being absorbed by the audience. So we might have a bit of a different thing this year in terms of that. We still have to see whether it's going to be all online, whether it's going to be in person. But for the film market, this isn't the first digital film market you've done.
No, not at all.
What do you think is different about that whole pitching process?
Well, it's very different because we're not face-to-face. It's harder to read cues. It's harder to immediately say after a 15-minute meeting whether they seemed interested or whether they weren't interested, and whether you can, follow up immediately, at lunch or at coffee, because that's how it works, If things click, you follow up. Here, in digital, it's been through Zoom, but somehow, because everyone is in a kind of similar boat, there's been a lot of replies, fast replies. So people want to get things done. People want to meet with each other. They want to meet new projects. Sometimes, they want to talk. You end up having opportunities that you wouldn't have because of digital. So in fact, it's actually been surprisingly positive, And I feel it's a great addition. It's a great way to carry out pitching, And nevertheless, it's the same time period. You're still having 15 minutes.
Yeah.
It's just call after call after call in different time zones, and just coordinating all of that. It must be really hard work for the market teams and everyone involved. But it worked out, In Cannes, it was terrific. It worked really well. and everyone.
That actually helped you also lead to this project now, right?
Yeah, that helped me find co-producers in Portugal who were interested in Foreign Cop, which is the film that we were developing for the last 2 years. The screenplay about the robbery that took place in the 80s and how a detective comes from Portugal to investigate in 80. And that led to somehow to Cannes, and eventually it led to a co-production collaboration. And it was fast because of availability, you know. So this digital way of doing things has had a lot of positivity, you know. I think we need to take the technologies that we have and use them to our advantage and to the better of our industries and to the better of the world, hopefully, as well.
And hopefully we'll still all worldwide be able to go to the cinema again soon.
Absolutely. You don't want to lose that experience either.
No, definitely. And we were some of the first, were we the first worldwide, something like that?
I think the Cinematheque in May was one of the first to open after a worldwide lockdown. So that was terrific as well. Even though we were separated because of the laws, and we should be, you know, just for safety reasons, it was amazing to be there in person and have the audiences react and listen to their reactions.
Yeah, and they were observing social distancing, they were checking people's temperatures, it was all a very safe environment. Coming back to Marlin, I know it's still the early stages of the project. What can you tell me about this project?
Well, I can say it's a feature film. I can also tell you that the co-producers are in Portugal, and I'm sorry, I can't say too much about it. But it's in development stage, and it's when I read the script, I was very excited about it.
I think you have some eager audience members out there right now who are going to be following up on this to see what happens with Marlin. Oh,
okay. Well, that's great. Then that's awesome, and this is what we're looking forward to. You know, we want to stay busy and keep busy, and you know, with this opportunity of Macau being this incredibly lucky place that it is in a sense, because it's able to control the situation really fast. You know, our government took the necessary measures really quickly. So we are in this position where there's an opportunity. There's a huge opportunity for this film industry to really kind of take off, you know, and keep going. And people need to see that, you know, and they need to kind of, the window is open now.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, you know, I'm like Florence in Renaissance time. You have to take the opportunity while it's here, because windows close fast in modern times. So I think it's just exciting to be part of it and to have come back here after film school. I'm really happy that I made that decision.
Well, it's interesting also your progression within making film, and you know, going to Tisch in Singapore and having the various experiences you've had in international festivals, including Toronto with Tricycle Thief.
Another miracle.
Well, I mean, you know, hard work, and what is it? Success is where hard work and opportunity meet.
Yeah, but that was also completely unprecedented, because for me to have shot here was also, that was a decision that I was still making, because I wanted to shoot in Singapore as well, or in the Philippines. So and at the end of the day, I came back here and, you know, they rolled the cameras, and so that was also part of this process of, you know, decision and luck and all of these things coming together at the same time, and finding the actors and the available crew here, you know. Mavi Tang, who's helped me with production management and, you know, just helped out a lot in line production, locations. You kind of start building a team after a while, you know, and it's a small community of filmmakers here. And we all kind of try our best to help each other, you know, to develop things, you know, and to keep going. And the quality is on par, you know. We're on par with Hong Kong. We're on par with China. So we can do it. And right now, you know, I feel that China does have the purchasing power to kind of invest in a new industry and to go in this direction, and potentially to make Macau's projects valuable. You know, you had this in the arts industry. You had this in Venice Biennale in 2007. You know, with Ung Vai Meng, Carlos Moreiros, Constantine, my father. It's a completely different business, of course. It's painting and art. But film, that's another area, and that could be really, really interesting.
And we're lucky enough that we have seen the film festival grow. It had a bit of a rocky start, let's say, but it's been able to keep going and have different iterations and bring in a lot of these international films and international audiences as well.
Yeah, well, give locals opportunities.
Give locals opportunity also. I wanted to ask you about that. Where do you see this going? I mean, because it's difficult to set up a type of film school idea in Macau. We're not like Hong Kong, we don't have the same dimension. But also we have, you know, they're talking about Hengqin, they're talking about the regional possibilities. Do you think that this can really be built up, and how much?
I think so.
How much money does that take?
I think, no, numbers-wise, I can't, I mean, Tisch Asia was an expensive project. I know that, you know, and that was the NYU Tisch opened a campus in Singapore. And that was an expensive venture, and because they didn't have a bachelor's program, I think that was part of the decision that they had to make to kind of withdraw funding, you know. But for the master's program, it was terrific. You know, all these filmmakers from all over the world coming to Southeast Asia and developing films, people from all over the world. And I think it's an investment. It's a big one. But the results pay off, you know, and you could see amazing films being shot all over the world, Indonesia and in Laos, and, you know. Speaking of Laos, there's Marido was in the first film market of the first IFAM, and that project was made and was in Venice and Toronto, and she's a Laotian filmmaker who, you know, developed her career in Los Angeles, and she's a ballerina, but she was in the market, so I met her last year. And so what the markets do is you also get to meet other filmmakers, and it's just inspiring, and it's great, you know. It's the kind of, the walls are lower, kind of the barriers to communication are lowered, and you get to communicate. It's an open platform.
That's interesting, because we're in such a closed-off world, and we have to be separated so much. It's nice to see that there's still the possibility of these barriers being broken down and people being brought together.
Absolutely. I think this is, if anything, for a better world, also for the next generation, we have to kind of make decisions that are also different, you know, slightly different, economically different. Think about the Green New Deals and things that are kind of in a longer term as well, as well as developing a new industry like this one, which would just, you know, like storytelling. Look at Macau, the 500 years or more, even more than that, of history and of writing and of literature, and of all the novels that have been written here, you know. So there's so much material here. It would be so great to have it shot, to have more co-productions here with different countries coming in, with filmmakers from Macau shooting elsewhere as well, you know. That's part of the excitement.
Well, speaking of excitement and projects that have been happening, I mean, you didn't stop. You'd obviously made films before Tricycle Thief, and you haven't stopped since then.
Short films, though.
It's been fair enough, but the development of feature-length films and going out and pitching them and trying to get this financing, obviously this year was a little bit different than all the other ones. But you've done a number of events, and specifically because Macau has been able to have these theaters open, that allowed you to do a couple of things and screen some of your movies. What were some of the more recent ones that you've done?
Well, the Macau Social Club cinema soiree at the Capitol Theater, a very old,
revamped old
theater from the 1960s. The cinema, and the building architecture from the 1930s. You know, it's beautiful. It's fascinating, and to have, you know, socially distanced 150 people in a 300-seater place was fantastic. You know, with a mixology and cocktails, and that was great, because also, you know, the actors came, Georges Val from The Handover, Mi Li from The Handover as well. We got to show films. The crew was there. My constant collaborator and cameraman Antonio Sanmarful was there. The writer of The Handover, the co-writer. Originally, the story was by Jorge Santos. So when he pitched the script, I really liked it. And I said, let's go for this. You know, let's do it with CCM's Local View Power, which is also another great platform for local filmmakers to develop short films. I think it's every April or every beginning of the year the application starts, but it's been ongoing, you know. And
but these films have a lot to do with Macau, but not the superficial aspects that we would see, for example, in a James Bond movie or Rowan Atkinson movie.
They have to earn billions. They have to earn billions, right? Because the investors put in so much money on those effects, on all of the cars, the explosions, all those scenes. They have to see their money back. So they have to kind of, you know, we want a flashy scene. You know, can you imagine an investor saying, I need that scene, I want to see that, because that's what audiences will go for. So I think we don't know what audiences go for. We just kind of have to follow our guts, you know, and tell the story that we feel like is the most honest one, the most truthful one. Sure, sometimes you get wrapped up in your own kind of versions of stories that, you know, you wish you'd be doing another project. But, you know, it's part of the process. You're still training your craft. That's the most important part. But on the question of James Bond, there's different ways of telling stories here. We have a lot of...
With Komodo dragons? Without Komodo dragons?
Yeah, without Komodo dragons, exactly. We didn't have Komodo dragons here at that time. The floating casino was floating elsewhere, for instance, you know. But in the 60s, naturally, it was floating at the inner harbor, I believe. But still, I mean, there's so much to say, and it's, you can consult screenwriters here. You can consult João Guedes, for instance, great historian, and also great journalist. I mean, I took a lot of inspirations from him, from his books, and from his storytelling, because he's really a great storyteller. So, you know, why not consult with him? What happened at that time? Instead of, you know, doing a Komodo dragon scene.
You know, I wanted to ask in terms of that, visually speaking, like you had mentioned the, pardon if I get this wrong, Overseas Cop? Foreign Cop.
Foreign Cop, exactly.
The Foreign Cop film that's set in the 80s.
Working title, by the way.
Okay.
No problem.
It's set in the 80s. It seems like Macau is very interesting visually in different periods
of time
as well, and it must be very difficult to shoot things at different periods of time.
Yep.
Right now, what you see of Macau in terms of its visual appeal. Do you think that that's still appealing to a cinematographer?
Absolutely. Actually, I love that you asked this question, because a city's landscape dictates the cinematography almost. If you look at Kar-Wai's films, Hong Kong, the landscape, it dictates those shots that Christopher Doyle pulls off. It dictates that moving camera, the wide-angle lens in that eatery, you know, and they're going through, and, you know, it's just exciting to see how the decisions are made. In Italy, for instance, in the 60s, there are a little bit more dollies, because architecture is very square. You have, you know, the houses, 2 floors, you know, it's traditional, neoclassical almost. Macau, you have a mixture. We have apartments, we have that old colonial architecture. Then we have those landmarks, UNESCO World Heritage landmarks. But then we have all the stories behind the human beings and their relationships. So it's just a treasure trove. I'm still surprised, like, why it's taking so long to take off. It will take off, though. I'm positive it will. I just hope it's faster with Zoom.
Yeah, with Zoom, as long as you have a good internet connection,
you
the industry will grow.
Good internet connection. Exactly.
Hats off to CTM. Speaking of IFFAM, because this digital project market is a part of that, they've been kind of mum about the details so far. Have you heard anything else about what's happening with it?
In terms of this year? In
terms of the festival itself. We're not really sure if it's going to be online or offline. We don't know if we can actually have physical in-person screenings,
right? No,
even though the cinemas are open.
I mean, I believe we'll all find out at the same time, you know, when the press release is done. We just know that the market is digital, you know, as was reported, and it's going to be similar probably to Cannes, which was the Cannes film market did really great. And we were part of the Fantastic Seven, which was also curated by the different film festivals around the world, including IFFAM's market. And that was this great opportunity to kind of segue and really kind of be part of an industry, you know. Sometimes as a filmmaker, you're coming out, you're new in this, you know, if you don't have a family in this, it's kind of you're coming out of the blue, you know, so you're new. You just have to start from scratch. You have to start finding out how 1 + 1s and the nuts and bolts of every kind of situation. So with this digital market, with Cannes, you were able to open up and be on a stage, on a digital stage, but you're still on a stage with sales agents, with distributors, with co-writers, with musicians, lots of composers, you know. Suddenly, you know, lots of composers will email
People remember that there's music in
movies. They remember that music is an integral part of movies. It's incredibly important.
Except for No Country for Old Men, right?
Yeah, but that's different. That's different. That's tension, you know. That was an artistic choice, I think, which is a great film, by the way. I love that film.
But in terms of we talked a little bit before about, you know, the in-person feeling of being at a film festival, walking that red carpet, as an audience member, as somebody who is making films, as somebody who's producing films. They're still making films.
Well, no,
more with money.
There's just to, I mean, you can clarify this because a lot of times financiers are like, why are there so many positions? Because sometimes a writer can also be a director, but not always. Sometimes the screenwriter will direct the film that he co-wrote with somebody, or that he just directs the things that he wanted to write. Or he's just brought on as a director who also writes, or he's just brought on as a director because he thinks very visually, you know, like David Fincher, for example. Seven, Fight Club, all those films. Sorry, what was the question?
Basically, where I was going to was there is the physical experience of having that, but you've also been involved in completely online festivals with your films. What was that experience like?
I mean, the one that we showed was Dirty Laundry, which was part of Years of Macau, produced by Tracy Choi. That was really fun to be part of.
We were really lucky to have Tracy on here a couple months ago also.
That's awesome.
Great talk. Yeah, she's really hardworking.
So these are the pushers of the industry, you know, Tracy Choi, the Cinematheque, Albert Chu, Rita. So it was great to be to show Dirty Laundry, which was part of Years of Macau, and to have audiences watch it live. So you had this live kind of YouTube link, and you would see 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and suddenly it's like you're really in a cinema, and suddenly the screen comes up, the announcements come up, the advertising comes up, and suddenly you start to see the live viewers, and the numbers start growing. It goes from 1 to 700 in like 5 seconds. And it's just amazing, right? And suddenly there's all these online comments live as they're watching the film. People go, ha ha, or I didn't like that scene, or or I love that scene, or that was really funny, or you know, whatever. People are commenting, and that was the amazing part of We Are One, of Tribeca's film festival that they organized this year. So showing that and seeing it with the cast, that was terrific. You know.
Do you think that because we've seen, you know, such a huge growth in Netflix, particularly during the pandemic, I think a lot of people turn to these online streaming platforms, and that's kind of the one main go-to. I'm not getting paid by them, by the way.
Netflix, Amazon, Apple TV. What else are we going to mention?
Another product plugged. Do you think that is going to be then the future of how people are going to consume cinema? Do you think that there's ever a chance for us to abandon the movie theaters entirely?
I think they will both exist, but look what happens. You know, we get locked down. What do we need? We need entertainment. People need to laugh. We need to laugh. I need to laugh at the end of the day. We need to see films. We want to see stories. And just more and more viewership this year. That's what you saw with different streaming platforms, exactly like Netflix. So what do we need to see? We need to see more kind of involvement or co-production, or it's just that the fact that we need more products. So we need more films, because sometimes they don't commission them, sometimes they buy them. Sometimes they like the film and they buy it. Most of the films that they've been commissioning, Martin Scorsese, you know, these are like legends of the film business. So that's a different approach of theirs. That's an original series. And so I just think that it goes in that direction. And it's part of the business, but that won't shut down cinemas. In fact, that should motivate cinemas to do more and to compete with online, you know, and see where that goes. That's what I would love to see, because I don't think you can replace the experience of being in a cinema, you know, and 100 people laughing at that joke you wrote, and it worked, you know, or whatever. Or you're just like, you're in the cinema and you're in the back, you're like, shh, don't tell anyone. You're watching it, and it's just amazing, you know. So I think both will work.
At the same time, we've seen many of these operators who are doing physical cinemas are having monetary problems. So hopefully within things like the digital project market, there's going to be more of these, Tudo, larger streaming platforms, Netflix,
absolutely,
showing
Youku
up.
as well.
Youku, yeah.
And more platforms from China that are being developed and that already exist at the moment. Partly owned by Alibaba or other big firms, because they really know how to push, and they have, if they want to do something, they do it, and it happens fast. And so that's the advantage. If there can be co-productions, we can have, we can flood the market with amazing content. And that's what the audiences want to see. They want to see amazing content. But there has to be, a level, it's not that there has to be. I would love to see co-productions, more of them happening.
Well, we have a very, very captive audience, like we did, I'm sure, tonight. Unfortunately, our time is drawn to a close. But the audience is eagerly awaiting to hear more about Marlon. And the best of luck to you within the Macau Digital Project Market happening at this year's International Film Festival and Awards Macau in December.
Thank you very much for the interview. Thanks for your time.
My pleasure. That's all for this week. Please join us again next week for more TDM Talk Show. Good night.